Dwight D. Eisenhower literally gets baptized a few days into his presidency in a Presbyterian church. So in 1954, Eisenhower is heading to a different Presbyterian church in DC for Lincoln's Day. The pastor knows that Eisenhower is going to be sitting in the pew that day and decides to give a sermon just for President Eisenhower, right? It's an audience of one, and the rest of the congregation just happens to be there. And then this is a progressive Presbyterian Church USA pastor. He later marches with Martin Luther King Jr. He protests against the Vietnam War. Very progressive-minded pastor who's very inspiring in a lot of ways, but he also wanted us to be a Christian nation. And so he makes the case. His sermon is making the case to Eisenhower as to why God should be put in the Pledge of Allegiance, and uses a lot of arguments that, we would say today we're Christian nationalism if we heard evangelicals up talking about why America was supposed to be built on the 10 Commandments and the word of Jesus, and that is the American way of life, and why we need to mark ourselves as God's blessed nation against those godless people at that time in the Soviet Union, right? But then the part that I think is most striking and was stunning when I actually read through the whole sermon was he says the quiet part out loud. So he says, well, some people don't believe in God, so why would we put under God in the pledge and make them say it? And this is what he says in his sermon that convinces Eisenhower to do this. Philosophically speaking, an atheistic American is a contradiction in terms. And then he adds, they really are spiritual parasites. And then unpacks the metaphor for quite a while, several sentences of why they are parasites, because he saw that to be a good American, to be a real American, one had to be a Christian. And the sermon works. I mean, this one sermon is why under God is in the Pledge of Allegiance. Eisenhower is convinced. The sermon is playing on the television, and members of Congress are asking for transcripts of it. It's put in the congressional record. This was never innocent. From the beginning, the foundational sermon to get under God in the pledge wasn't just some unifying generic civil religion idea of, hey, let's all just, be under God. No, it was from the beginning excommunicating civically some Americans as not really American enough because they didn't claim to a certain religious position.